Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our 2025 Montgomery County Football Media Day. We just wrapped up with Kirkwood and West Creek head coach Chad Watson and Michael Booker. I'm now joined by Northeast head coach Deonte Weston and senior linebacker Jamarion Green. Guys, I just want to say, first of all, thank you guys for doing this. It's a big help when we try to promote football in the county and things like that. But I just want to kind of jump right into it. You guys were 1-9 last season. Mm-hmm. It was your first year as head coach after you were offensive coordinator the year before. Just kind of how would you rate your first year as a head coach at Northeast last year?
I thought it kind of went pretty well for what I was trying to accomplish. The biggest thing I was trying to do was come in, trying to change that culture, just taking over at a short amount of time, like getting that job right as we're going into spring, right in May. And I thought we did some things well. The kids, they really started to buy into everything that we wanted them to do. We got a coaching staff we got an established coaching staff. And then the biggest thing we tried to harp on was just playing the right way. That was the biggest thing, doing things the right way. We wasn't worried about wins that first year. We were just getting kids to be on the same page and trying to establish that family environment and get them to know, like, this is the way that you're going to play football here at Northeast High School to be able to win games going into the future.
We talked about that, with Coach Booker about changing the culture. Mm-hmm. What goes into changing a culture at a place?
You got to be consistent. That's one of the biggest things. You got to be consistent with the message. You can't change from day to day, because kids need consistency in their lives. Like, some of them don't have consistency at home, So this the biggest thing is, if I'm saying the message, my coaches, they also got to be able to echo that same message throughout. And the biggest thing is, when we get that coaching right to where we want it to be, that means the kids will be policing themselves. It's not going to be a coaches-led team. It'll be a players-led team.
Jamarion, as a senior, you've obviously played for different head coaches, in your career at Northeast. Just how have you seen the culture change over your career at Northeast?
It's been pretty good after Sam Lipsy. I mean, he tried his best, but nobody would buy into the program. Then Coach Weston came. Everybody started to buy in around week 4. And now we just got to keep buying in.
What does it take? Like you said, you guys weren't buying in when Coach Lipsy was there. What goes into, what convinces you to buy into a program, a coach, a team?
It's really all on the players. It was like half the team was bought in, then they were just doing what they wanted to do.
When you can become one of those player-led teams that Coach is talking about, and he's not on you guys about, trying to do the right things. You guys are policing yourselves, like you said. Does that kind of help you guys become more of a tight-knit unit, kind of become more of a team?
Yeah, it does.
When, you bring back 6 on both sides of the ball starters from last year, when you've got, half your offense and defense coming back, does that kind of give you a head start when you get into the off season and things like that, prepping for the next year?
Yeah, it gets you really a sense of relief, to be honest with you. You're not having to go in and reteach things. Obviously we're gonna go back to every install, that whole deal. But then, those guys that are returning, they already know what we got going on. We know that we can lean on them, but then they also are going to coach the younger guys as well. So like for us, with that, like, we knew what we had coming back. We were like, okay, so now let's go ahead and start figure out, okay, plug in some other pieces to those other needs that we have. So right now we definitely felt good coming back into this year, but we really had to, plug in some pieces on the defensive side of the ball. That's what the biggest thing we were concerned about.
You guys moved down from Class 6A to 5A this year, but it's basically the same region you were playing in last year, minus Clarksville, Rossview, West Creek. You just added Henry County.
Yes.
When, just kind of what are your thoughts on moving down to 5A, but, you're still essentially keeping the same region schedule?
Moving down to 5A for us, just in that perspective, is big because I think that, if we can make the playoffs, we don't have to go against the Houston or Collierville or Bartlett that's on the other side, that probably have about 2,000 more student population in their school than what we have. So I think that we could fare a little bit better on the other side of the bracket if we can get into the playoffs. But just going down to 5A and being in that basically the same region, it gives us a familiarity with the teams that we're facing. Like, we played the Kirkwoods, West Creek, Dixon, all of them last year. So we got the film. We're familiar with them and what they're going to do. So that's what we spent a majority of the offseason doing. Really going through, breaking down their film and just seeing what we were bad at, what we can get better at as we move into this season.
Jamarion, based on last year, what were some things that you guys as a team thought that you guys needed to see improvement in coming into this year?
We needed to improve on a lot of things, but the main probably offense. We had to move the ball. It's kind of hard to play defense when you're on the field most of the game, and then defense we just got to keep playing and making stops. We can't just give up halfway through the game.
And kind of talking about that offense, it seemed like there were some games last year where you guys were able to move the ball effectively, and then drives would just kind of stall out or things like that, turnovers maybe. But, especially with you as an offensive guy coming from, you were the offensive coordinator, now you're the head coach. What are some things that, you guys have kind of tried to improve on offense this year?
Running the football. That's the biggest thing. I think a lot of people get that misconstrued because of my background of being a spread guy. But at the end of the day, you have to run the football. That's what we got to be able to establish the run. And the thing that we really focused on this offseason was our offensive line. I think that was our biggest deficit. So we really tried to hone on them early in our offseason, get a group of guys, teach them the fundamentals. Like when we took over the job late, last year, my offensive line coach really didn't get here until mid-July. So, that's really hard to get those guys some consistency going forward. So we were just more worried about scheme things and we couldn't really hone on the techniques. But that's what we really went into this offseason.
When you go from offensive coordinator to head coach, I would assume that the scheme, at least offensively, didn't change all that much. When you can keep guys, in the same scheme for multiple years, how does that kind of help build that offense up?
Well, kind of like from going, well, the scheme basically did change. Like I was hired in December, so I never got a chance to really coach them from an offensive coordinator perspective. I ended up coming in as offensive coordinator and then end up being the head coach within 3 months. So, they was in a wing T offense, and then they went straight to the spread, when I took over. And that's what I was going with anyway as the offensive coordinator. But what that did is on the offensive line perspective, that changes a lot. They wasn't used to pass blocking, and technique wise, everything is just different. But we have the athletes, athletes aren't the problem as far as, receivers, running back. In football, especially on the offensive side of the ball and defense side of the ball, everything starts up front. So if we don't take care of the line of scrimmage, we're not going to win that many games.
You graduated, Phoenix Love, your quarterback, but you bring back, some really good skill guys, Terry Jones, Jonas Veazey. When you can bring back guys like that, even though you will have a new quarterback, how does that just kind of help not only him, but kind of speed that process up on the offense of just kind of getting back in that groove you were in last year?
It definitely speeds the process up. Like I tell my quarterback right now, Caden Davis, he's a sophomore. Your job is just to get the ball in their hands and let them do most of the work. They already know the playbook almost inside and out. So those guys are helping our, other receivers, get caught up, to speed. But I can trust them to always be in the right spot, just doing what they need to do. So that definitely helps us out a whole lot. I just got to be able to bring my young quarterback along so we don't make that many mistakes. So that way we can just continue to just dink and dunk down the field. And then as he gets into week 4, week 5, week 6, we can put more responsibilities on his plate. But right now, I feel really good about our receiving core, and the running backs that we have.
Jamarion, in the offseason, would you say that, there were more things on the field or off the field that you guys had to, improve on? Things probably on the field talking, like schemes and kind of gelling together and stuff like that? Or were you guys kind of more focused on kind of still changing that culture that Coach is talking about?
It was a little bit of both, but I'd say mainly off the field, getting the culture back together. We're trying to win this year.
Among, obviously Coach can only do so much, but among you guys as the players, what does it look like, when you're trying to change that culture and become a player-led team?
Kind of leading on and off the field, making sure everybody's locked in, bought into the program. They know what they're doing out there on the field.
Gave up, 36 points a game last year on defense, but you're playing some really good offensive teams, Kirkwood, Clarksville, Rossview, teams like that. Just what kind of goes into, building that defense up for this year?
One of the biggest things is being able to return some starters on that side of the ball. That was the biggest thing. We came out. We switched up the scheme a few times last year. We were a 4-2-5 at the beginning, switched to a 3-4 in the middle of the season. We were just trying to figure out personnel. At the end of the day, we were brand new staff. We're trying to gel together with these kids. I think the biggest thing now is we solidified that side of the ball. The kids know the scheme. So the biggest thing to not give up so many points as we did last year is we have to stop the run. That was the biggest thing. There's nothing more demoralizing to a defense than being able to, run the ball and ran down your throat. So that's the biggest thing that we're focusing on, stopping the run. And then after that, it should take care of itself.
When you were hired, you were the fourth head coach in 6 years at Northeast. When you look at guys, especially in the county, like Chad Watson and Isaac Shelby that were at Northeast, kind of had, especially Isaac Shelby, had Northeast going deep in the playoffs, just about every year. But when you go through a transition like Northeast has been through before you got there, how tough does that kind of add an extra difficulty to trying to change that culture?
I would say a difficulty. I say it's fun.
Yeah.
I love, that weight, being on your back, there's nothing more fun than trying to build a program. I think when you get into coaching, like you're trying to build that program, but at the end of the day, you're out there, you're trying to mentor a young man. So if we're mentoring them, doing the things the right way, the wins will come. Those things will show on the scoreboard, later on. But yes, everybody's going to look at Northeast, say, let's try to get back where it used to be and all this. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to worry about, what we're doing right now. And we're just going to try to, get to August 23rd and, let that thing take care of itself day by day, week by week.
Jamarion, you guys brought back 6 starters on defense. But when you talk about those other 6 guys that you've got, or the other 5 guys you've got to replace, how have you kind of gone about becoming a leader on that defense, kind of helping not only the guys that have been there, but kind of those younger guys to, help them out what they're doing out there?
I've been helping them out pretty good with the times that I'm there. But really, it's just all on them, learn to play, learn the plays. Then we got to get the linebackers, we got new spots. The linebacker, we got one hole right there. Then most of the guys play both sides of the ball now. Jonas, Terry. Then we got Shamad. He was a freshman last year, but he's been pretty good. Destin Jones, been pretty good this year.
Outside of, a really good pass rush, linebacker's probably, just about any team's premier position on defense. Do you kind of, take a little bit of pride in being that guy that, can be a leader on the defense in that linebacker spot that coach can kind of count on to go out there and make a play?
Oh, yes, sir, for sure.
You guys, had your first scrimmage last night. Just, based on expectation at the start of the offseason, just what's the offseason looked like for you guys progression-wise? And then kind of leading up to last night, how do you think you guys looked?
I think, the off season, just being able to lead up, I thought was okay. I think we were definitely far ahead this year than we were last year. Being able to, we got started right in December. The kids got a month off. We started in December, hit the weights really hard, got in our speed and agility program, when the weather warmed up, and then we started to get on the field. But we are definitely farther along than we were last year. And then as we led into the scrimmage, we seen some good things. There were some bad things. It was a first scrimmage, and that's kind of what it was. And we plugged and played with a few things. Seen a lot of young guys. The biggest thing we tried to stay healthy. Jay Green here, he didn't play in the scrimmage last night. He's played big baseball player. So, he got a little rest. Destin Jones, he didn't play in the scrimmage as well. We was also missing a lineman. So we were missing a few guys from the scrimmage last night, which is actually, it's okay because now we get to see, who are some guys that can play behind them and build some depth.
I want to get into the schedule a little bit. You open at Christian County, then West Creek at home, at McCracken County, at Kirkwood versus James Lawson, at Mount Juliet versus Henry County, at Kenwood versus Dixon County, and then finish out with Northwest at home. You've got those two games, Christian County, McCracken, two of those teams from Kentucky. Just kind of, what's that mindset to schedule games like that? Not a lot of teams, even though we're 20 minutes from the state line.
Yeah,
you should know, what's that kind of mindset scheduling those games with teams from Kentucky?
I love it. I'm from Kentucky. Yeah. I played at Hopkinsville, so Christian County's the rival. So I thought that'd be a really good test for us, just right down the road, 30 minutes down the road, and really go have some fun playing those guys. But it gives a good chance for the kids to see somebody else. A lot of times you see teams play the same people all over, over and over again. But if you go across the board, football's played a little bit different, So I just wanted them to go be able to see, some different football. Like when we go to McCracken. They returned their quarterback to throw about 41 touchdowns last year and almost about 3,000 yards. So they're going to see some really good offensive football. And the biggest thing is to try to get us teams that look similar to what we look like in the region as well. So, being able to, after we play them, we get into playing Kirkwood, and all that. But then we also put a Mount Juliet on the schedule right before Henry County. We know who Henry County is going to be. So we need to put somebody on that schedule that can, be a similar type opponent, just like they are, to get us prepared to hopefully be able to compete and go win the region.
Jamarian, looking at the non-region schedule, Christian County, McCracken, James Lawson, Mount Juliet. Mount Juliet, probably one of the best teams in the state in 6A, year in, year out. When you guys schedule tough non-region schedules like that, and then you get to, you guys are kind of mixed in, in terms of playing non-region game, region game, kind of mixing it up throughout the schedule. When you can play a tough non-region schedule, and, essentially, it doesn't go towards your region race in terms of making the playoffs. When you can schedule tough non-region games, how does that kind of help you guys when region play comes along?
I think it's good competition. It's going to be a tough battle when you go out there with the big guys, like Mount Juliet. They're pretty good. They're good, but it's going to be hard, but we just got to push through it.
We talked about some of the guys already, Terry Jones, Jonas Veazey, Caden Davis, but you bring back 6 starters on both sides, but who are some of those guys that you're expecting to be some of your top guys this year on both sides?
We got a few new guys who was added to the roster. Xavier Ward, he's a receiver transferred in from Kentucky, and he's been a really big impact for us offensively this offseason. Harold Marshall, he's another big impact player for us who's going to add to our running back and DN room. He transferred in from New York. He had over 1,000 yards and about 20 touchdowns where he was last year. But also add to that room is our returning running back starter, Montreal Perry. We look for him to have a really big year this year. That's one of the biggest reasons why we, added to that offensive line, to get him ready. Shamai Parker on defense, we look for him to step up really big, being a 2-year starter as he was a freshman last year. He really got he got a lot of varsity playing time, but he's had a really huge offseason for us as well. And then, we got Chris Canella. He's had a really huge offseason for us on defensive line. So we have and Damian Jarrett as well. He's been another young guy who's going into his sophomore year. At the end of the year, he started about 2 games for us. He's had a huge offseason. So we have a lot of guys, a lot of explosiveness. The biggest thing for us is gelling together. Once we gel together and we get ready for, as we going through these scrimmages, just like next week, we go back down to Kentucky and play Hopkinsville for a scrimmage, and then we got a top 10 ranked team out of Kentucky, Paducah Tillman, who won a state championship last year. We scrimmage them next week as well. So those are going to be some huge tests. Our goal, those were the reasons why we scrimmage that way, to get us ready for our season.
Demarion, coach isn't out there running the reps, obviously, but as a player, as someone who's out there, just what do you think about the progression you guys have made this offseason?
It's been pretty good. I think we're finally coming together. We're almost there, but we just gotta keep doing what we're doing. Everybody just gotta buy in.
Got 2 more weeks of scrimmages before the first week of the regular season. Just what do you think are some things that you guys maybe need to still tighten up a little bit more before the start of the season?
On the defense side of the ball, we got to fill our holes. Everybody's kind of like lackadaisical. We got to run hard and hit. That's about it.
Going into your second season as head coach, you talked about changing the culture. Just what do you want the identity of this football team to be?
Just doing things the right way. That is the biggest thing that we preach. Doing things the right way, doing your job, and then letting everything else take care of itself. I think when people come out and they see us, I want them to know that Northeast is a hard, fast, and physical team, and they're going to play the right way. With great sportsmanship. That's the identity of the team that I want to be able to put out there on Friday nights. 1-9
last year. We talked about the improvement you made in the offseason. What does a successful season look like for you guys this year, in your mind?
At the end of the year, I would know that we play hard every game, and we would be in the hunt for a playoff spot in the region. That's what a successful season for us would look like. I believe anything less than that, we've sold short this season with the talent and the work that we've put in.
We talked about, 4 head coaches in 6 years when you were hired. When you can have a coaching staff that stays for multiple years at a place and can kind of build some continuity, how far does that go in building a program and kind of progressing it?
Well, it goes a long way because, we brought in a few new coaches this year. We upgraded our coaching staff as well. But they also get on the same page as my vision, in the program. When you're going with 4 different head coaches in 4 years, you have 4 different visions, 4 different, ways of doing things. But now these kids get consistency, but it's like at the end of the year last year, we were about 1-8, and one of the players looked at me and was like, "Hey, coach, are you leaving this year?" And I was like, "Why do you think that?" It was like, "Well, everybody else has left, and we're not doing good this year." I was like, "No, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here to stay." And that's part of the problem. The kids need consistency, and me and my staff, we're going to provide them that.
Demarion, when you can get that consistency from a coach and have someone that puts their belief in you for more than a season, how far does that go? Not only helping you on the field, but just kind of helping your self-esteem and your confidence.
I think it feels really good when you have a coach that stays. I've had a new coach about my whole high school career playing football. For a coach to stay, it takes a lot. It shows a lot that even when you go 1-9, he's still bought in and loving y'all.
What is your vision for the program?
My vision is to make sure that when young men leave our program, they are better men, better people, and hopefully be better husbands as they get older, and just doing things the right way as far as character and integrity at Northeast High School.
I want to thank Coach Weston and Jamarion Green for joining me for our 2025 Montgomery County Football Media Day. You can check out the Eagles this fall, and you can check out all of our high school football coverage at mainstreetclarksville.com.